Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special presentation of the Tapped Out Wrestling Double Dropkick podcast. Maybe. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel, and I am joined by Heath Mullikin of the Double Dropkick podcast.
Hey, Nick, thank you so much, man. What an honor to be with you today. I'm excited about our conversation, and I'm excited to tap out today.
Yeah, man. Look, we been having some of this conversation, like, just on the phone and back and forth, and we're like, dude, this is something we should put out there together for everybody to hear. Look, because it's award season, everybody's talking about it. Look, I get it. Like, a lot of people ask, so I'm going to get this out right out of the gate because a lot of people ask me why I just don't talk about it more. Look, it's not my awards. It's, if it was my awards, I'd talk about it more. How about the people whose awards it are? They promote it. That's their, I'm a big fan, believe it or not, of promotions doing their own awards. I am. Because it's like, look, I think we're going to get into this part in a minute, so I'm going to leave this one alone, but it's just their awards. And you'll know what I mean by that, and we will surely get there at some point.
Right. I think part of the reason I want to have this conversation, too, is it's not just award season in Georgia. Robert Truesdale, Redbeard, has done a great job the last, I don't know how many years he's been doing the Carolinas Professional Wrestling Awards, and I've been able to be a part of those at one point as a panelist. And so this is an exciting time of year to be a wrestling fan because even though we may have some criticisms or things we would change, it gets people talking. It gets people like me and you talking about, man, where are we at in the state of independent wrestling? And so I think for Carolinas and Georgia to come together for this conversation is a really cool thing. And man, it's a good time to be a wrestling fan, man. There's a lot of wrestling to be found.
Every night of the week. My wife jokes about it on a regular basis. She's like, of course you can find wrestling on television. I'm like, you do realize it's on every night at this point, essentially. So yes, it's not impossible to turn on the TV generally at 8 o'clock any night of the week. Wrestling's on.
And even like pretty much no matter where you live in the Carolinas and Georgia, at least 2 weekends out of the month, you can find a wrestling show within an hour or two of yourself. And, I've driven 4 hours for a good, wrestling show before. And,
you've driven 4 hours for a bad wrestling show, I'm assuming, as well.
I have no comment on that. But yeah, I'm excited. I think you and I kind of share the belief that there's always room for improvement, not just in the ring, but on how wrestling is covered. And, I'm not able to go to as many shows as I used to. But I used to do a weekly report on, Carolina's wrestling. And, one of the frustrations that I had is in the Carolinas, we don't have a site like Georgia Wrestling History where people are putting reports and saying things. We don't really have that. And it's very frustrating when you're trying to get results from a promoter. Hey, I want to talk about your show on my podcast, and you get nothing. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So, yeah, like I said, I'm excited for this conversation today.
All right, man. Well, let's get that. Look, we are going to talk awards. We're going to probably delve into some promotions a little bit. And then at the very end, like, look, we're going to have some rules that we're going to go over. We are going to go through the Georgia Wrestling History Award, the actual awards, make some predictions, picks, whatever you want to call it. But there will be some rules, and those we'll throw out right beforehand. We don't want to complicate it and come back to it later. So we'll go through those. But where do you want to start, man? I know you got questions, man. And so let's just dive right into it.
So when we're talking about awards and we're trying to think, okay, who's the best wrestler or what was the best match or who's the best tag team, do you think about, like, should those winners be expected? A couple things. Should they be expected to work for more than one promotion in the region? And should the promotions they work for be AA, AAA promotions and not what I would call single A and then church softball promotions?
Wait, you mean all promotions aren't equal?
No. All promotions are not equal. Maybe we should start the conversation there.
Yeah, I'm okay with that because I agree. Look, and here's the thing. I a lot of people, look, they've been called multiple things, when it comes to the, people that talk about them. Look, we've heard, they're the outlaw mud shows, or, look, Gary Lamb affectionately calls them the shit shows, blah, blah, blah. Look, here's the thing. I think people get confused and they think the promotions themselves are like, they're just delusional. Like they know what they are.
Some do, yes.
Yeah, I think most do. I think not all. Most do. Like most know what lane they're in, and what their roles are. In this, and they understand there is a tiered system when it comes to promotions. I mean, like, look, we talk about it on the national scale, right? Look, no offense. There's Ring of Honor, NWA. I put Impact, above them, and then there's AEW, and then there's W. So there's tiers when on the national scale. Why would that be any different even on a local level?
No, that's right. And I think the ones, what I would say, the lower level promotions who really understand their role is we are a place for people to get started. And you have to have those. I mean, for instance, do the fans of Southern Honor Wrestling or Action Wrestling want to see somebody's first match, like somebody that they've never really heard of? You might want to see their first match. That's exciting. But do you want to see their second through their 10th matches? No, there's a place where you can there need to be promotions where you can learn your craft, get $5 or $10 or no dollars, and put the ring up and pay your dues and learn some different things. Now, having said that, even at the lowest level, all those promotions are not created equal either.
Correct.
So I guess let's start. I mean, if you're considering someone for an award, do you think, is there a minimum number of matches they need to have? And should they have to work for more than one promotion?
I'm going to put a caveat into yes, I do. However, if you got a guy who wrestles one promotion and all of that work at that promotion is so head and shoulders above that you just can't leave them off, that's an argument to be made. Right. And here's the hypothetical. If Cruel only wrestled at Southern Honor, and I'm just making stuff up here, and the story was so good for that entire year, like he had a feud with somebody that you had to put it at feud of the year or make him wrestler of the year, that argument could be made. If it's just a guy who's the main event on a third tier, promotion, hey, he was the champion all year, blah, blah, he should be up for wrestler of the year. No, because he only works this one place. I find that is a harder one. You got to make it so, it's like the MVP in baseball on a bad losing team. He just has to play so lights out that you can't argue it.
Right.
That'd be my exception.
I think if you have someone that only works for one promotion and that promotion does not run monthly, that would be a knock against that person. Sure. For me as well. But in my head, if I'm going to really consider you're going to have to wrestle at least once a month in that region. I've argued for a long time for the Carolinas Awards, you ought to have to work in both states. That's 12 matches. If you only work in North Carolina, are you a Carolinas wrestlers? One of the awards in the Carolinas is called the Fire of the Carolinas, and it's kind of like between that rookie and wrestler of the year. It's kind of like the Intercontinental Award. And I remember there was somebody, and they had only wrestled in one state. I'm like, how can you be the fire of the Carolinas, if you've only wrestled in one state, and maybe I'm just a stickler for stuff like that, but those are the things as a wrestling fan. If these awards are going to matter, if they're going to be taken seriously, which I don't know, maybe they shouldn't be taken seriously, but that's just kind of where I land on. That's just kind of where I land on.
Like, is that the pause where we come to like, for me to throw in there, like you know, asking that question. And I think that is the biggest discourse that we have when it comes to them, is how much do they matter and how serious do people take them? And I have been uniform in my answer for years. There was a window when I helped, look, the voting system that is used today, you're welcome. I'll never get it, but you're welcome. It was the one that I started on a website that, you know, that I basically signed up for and said, hey, use this. It makes it life simple. You think about it. It's live as people are voting. There's no tallying votes. It's done.
Right.
But even then I had the same answer. If they mattered to you on January 1st, they should matter to you on December 31st.
Right.
If they didn't, then they shouldn't. I don't knock anybody who's happy about winning, but you shouldn't lose sleep over not winning either, if that makes any sense.
No, that's right. And I do think, first of all, if you're giving an award is a tangible, physical thing. It's a plaque, it's a certificate, it's something.
It's a Slammy.
Right. But it's something that if I say, hey, I won this award, I can show you the award. So whether it's a promotion giving out awards or a podcast giving out awards, if you're just naming your winners or taking votes and you're not actually giving an award, it's just a poll. And that's fine. That's totally fine. That's totally fine if a podcast wants to do that, or anybody say, hey, here's our fans poll for the year. This was who won the poll. But if you're saying this person won this award, well, you got to award them something.
Yeah. And here's the thing, though. People, like, I get a lot of pushback when I say what I said about them. But I actually said to somebody, if we did awards, if Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast did an awards, you know, and we gave out trophies and all that kind of stuff, you shouldn't take it that seriously if we did. I mean, it would be cool if you were honored that you got it.
Right.
Don't lose sleep if you didn't. It's okay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's, I think it should be a pretty clear answer for me if somebody said, well, does Heath care about awards? I would say, and you would know this because you're a patron in our Facebook group, I don't know that anyone else in the Carolinas and Georgia talks more about the awards than me behind the scenes. It's not a public podcast. It's a podcast I put out to some of our friends and fans. So yeah, they matter to me because I talk about them a lot. And so if I were a wrestler, that wouldn't be the primary reason I would do the things that I was doing, but it would definitely be on my mind.
It entertains you. Like, that's the thing. It's entertaining to you. And to me, to be honest with you, like, I don't get caught up in it. Like when the guys are arguing and stuff, I can't tell you the number of times I type responses and then just delete it off. Cause I'm like, I don't want to say, man, it's okay. Look, when I see somebody like, when Vari Morales is posting things about like, hey, what do I got to do to get noticed? Dude, don't lose any sleep over it. It's fine.
Yeah. I'll tell you this story. There was a young man, this is maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he had not been wrestling long. He was a really young guy, and he was only wrestling for a couple of local promotions. And he's talking to the booker, and he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about quitting. And he's like, well, why are you thinking about quitting? He's like, we've been using it on all our shows. He's like, well, I'm just not any good. He's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I lose all the time. And he's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I lose all my matches. I'm just not getting any better. And this kid was taking it personally that he was losing. And I'm like, bro, you shouldn't be in wrestling then. If you don't understand the whole concept of what's going on here, then so yeah, you should not. No one should be. I don't think anybody should be offended if they don't win an award, and I also don't think that anybody should put more stake in them than they are. They're nice. I like them, and I think they're great. They give us something to talk about for sure.
Now, I think there is some truth to it. It's a measuring stick of like, so nobody's even talking about me, and like I know. Listen, I'm sure Austin Theory doesn't lay awake at night wondering why he never won a Georgia Wrestling History Award. I'm pretty sure. Look, Aja Ruffin is her name. She's a referee now.
Yeah.
She never wanted, like, I'm sure she gets just enough sleep every night. She is okay that and look, and it's me not crapping on the Georgia Wrestling History Awards. That's just me saying, keep everything in perspective when it comes to wrestling.
And if you look at Carolina's awards and the Georgia awards, now in the Carolinas, there was one year, like the year Cedric Alexander got signed, he was our Wrestler of the Year because he had a great year. He deserved it, but it was almost like his send-off. There was when Trevor Lee got signed. He had a tremendous year in the Carolinas. It was almost like his send-off. But winning these awards guarantees nothing. Mm-hmm. If you look back, I was looking back at the history of the winners. There's the percentage of Wrestlers of the Year in Georgia who signed a major deal, it's very slim. And one of those guys is not even in wrestling anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, that's what we're talking about. It's just all perspective, man. Just, it's okay. Like, I get it. If you're excited that you got voted by your peers and all of that kind of stuff. But look, our argument is sometimes the process just in itself isn't perfect.
Yes. So let's talk about that. So one of the things I said to you when I listened to Tipping Point and I listened to kind of Rob Rod sharing there, and this happened in the Carolinas too. There are tons, what you and I would say, too many finalists. 100%. But I know in the Carolinas there's a formula that Robert uses where he takes the total number of nominations and the nominations you got. He figures out a percentage, and then everybody who got the certain percentage you're in. How do you fix that? If you're trying to be, I mean, it's one thing to have a nominations process that's on the up and up and legit, but shouldn't part of the role of a panel be to narrow that down?
I just think you got to have a clear defined line. We talked about this off, one day, and we were like, look, whether the committee got it correct in college football or not,
right?
They have 4. Like they're numbered. They told you at the beginning of the season there's 4.
Right.
I'm a big fan of 3. I don't think you should ever have more than 3 finalists when it comes to actual. And I'll get into the math why. There's literally a mathematical reason I believe this to be true. But whatever that line is, like when they do the college football playoff rankings, their votes, like it's vote like number 1 votes, and you had it, and your votes give you your score. There's a team at 5. Even if they were 1 vote behind 4, they're 5. It doesn't matter. Like, they don't look at it and go, man, they were really close. We should just slide them in there too. No, it's the 4. My argument should be there's 3, whatever the nominations are. Like, well, what if there's a tie? Figure it out. I don't care how you get there. 3. 4 would be just a crazy, wild scenario that I just think 3, and I will go to the table. And guess what? Committees have hard decisions to make. Mm-hmm. That's part of the job. If you don't want if you don't want that decision, don't be on the committee. It's that simple. 3, period.
Yeah. Part of the one of the things that I don't know if regret's the right word. The year that we were on the panel for the Carolinas Awards, I really wanted to do a group call, just talk about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't know who they were nominating. Hey, tell me why you're nominating this guy or this tag team or this lady. Tell me why. Convince me. And I think we're missing that. And I think I told you this yesterday. If you had a panel and they're having that discussion, dude, you record that. You want to talk about something that would score some ratings and be so interesting and really like it gives transparency to the conversation. But I think we were also talking about too, and this was in the notes, is I think this year there was some overcorrection. So what do you think about that?
So I was talking to somebody, and they actually, that you would think would be just air all the dirt, right? So there was a couple years that we were involved with the Georgia, and I said, listen, there's things that happen that I'm not going to like get super detailed into, like, because I mean, I was trusted to be on a committee that was, it's behind the scenes so I'm not going to give out certain things, but I want to give them credit that there was that call happened. So I was on this call where it was like, hey, everybody's kind of talking about the nominees and coming up with the finalists and all that. So that, I'll give them that credit. I don't know if it's still happening. It did that year. The only problem that I had was there was a moment where I threw my hands up because, well, then there's 4 nominees. There's 5 nominees. There are 5 or whatever finalists. And I'm like, I remember at one being like them, making a case for somebody. And I just literally was kind of like, what does it matter? I'm like, at this point we're arguing 6 and 7.
Right.
Like that's like I'm out. I don't care. At this point, I'm like, look, the one that I care about's there. Just if you're throwing 6 in there, I don't give a shit who the 6th person is.
Right. And if you're really arguing about, it's like people in college football, you could argue about Florida State. You maybe could argue about Georgia, and that was it.
Yeah.
There was no argument beyond those teams, because once you get to a certain point, this person is not going to win. They're not going to win this thing. I think part of the problem too, briefly, is the wording. And I commented on one of Gary Lamb's posts the other day, is these, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these are not the nominees. These are the finalists.
Correct.
There were probably dozens of people who got nominated. And I think it's confusing when you say, hey, here's our nominees. No, these are your finalists.
Right.
And
so now I'm going to bring the math to it.
Yeah.
Where the reason why I said it can't be more than 3. The reason I have a problem with it is if you have 6 nominees, or, and they're here, I'm saying it right. So if you've got your 6 finalists, okay, well, you can. And so this is the part where I said I would walk a fine line. I actually have the results of a year that I ran the voting up on my phone. I wasn't going to share. I'm not going to tell you the categories. I'm not going to get into the whatever. I just want to because I wanted to be specific as an example. There's a category, one of the years that they had at least 6. There's a reason I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Because if I say specifically what numbers, you could start figuring out probably which one it was. So it's at least 6 finalists were in here. My argument was you had somebody win who didn't even get a third of the vote.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that really the winner of that category when they don't even garner, a third of the vote? And my problem with having 6, 7, 8, whatever, finalists, there's another category that had 3 finalists not gained 10% of the vote. My argument is they don't belong. Look, and it's not a knock on those people, and I get it. It's an honor to be a finalist, and I understand that. But they clearly didn't belong in that conversation with the people that racked up, a bulk of the vote.
Right.
So I understand that it's an honor, but it's also nice to get a participation trophy. I understand that. But that's not what it should be. It would mean more, in my personal opinion, and my opinion is what it is. It's just my opinion. It would mean more to me if you told me, hey, the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast is up for, podcast of the year, in the United States. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And they're like, there's 50 finalists.
Right.
It's like, okay. They're like, or if you told me there was 5, best like independent podcast or whatever you want to call it. You told me there's 5, that means way more to me. If I'm up for Wrestler of the Year, but there's 7, like I get that it's an honor.
Right.
But does it mean as much if the state thought I was one of the 3 best wrestlers? That means more. I think it loses a little shine.
I do think it's interesting to see, and I don't want to call anybody out, but they know who they are, and if this offends them, then it is interesting to see when you see that 6th or 7th person wear that as a badge of honor. Man, I was finalist for Georgia Wrestler of the Year. It's almost like you're validating something that doesn't really need to be validated when you go beyond 3 finalists.
What happened to I got snubbed, so next year I'm going to make a point?
Right.
That chip on the shoulder.
Well, what they do, if we're being honest, I got snubbed. They don't matter anyway. I'm going to take my ball and go home. That's what they do. To me, man, if that's your stance,
hit pause, go back to the beginning of this episode, and hit play again. And that's all I'm saying. Like, there's nothing wrong with like wanting to win versus needing to win. There's a huge difference.
Right.
Especially in wrestling. Jeff Jarrett has something. I say this to wrestlers as much as I can. Jeff Jarrett says this on a weekly basis on his podcast. If you haven't heard him say it, you're not listening enough. Wrestling / creative is subjective. It is all subjective. Look, can somebody be technically good in the ring? Sure. But what if he wrestles a style that you don't like?
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, look, I just was at a show, by the way, and you can appreciate this because you weren't. I was at a show. Do you know who stood out more than anybody? Cody Fluffman. You know why? He was so different and he was so entertaining. There were tons of great wrestlers on the show.
Right.
But Cody Fluffman stood out because he was different.
Right.
But guess what? I'm sure somebody in that crowd probably went home and was like, he was a comedy guy. Yeah.
Right.
Subjective. So go ahead. Sorry.
I've often said wrestling at its best is like the circus. You got to have the lions. You got to have the acrobats. You got to have dancing bears. You got to have some clowns. You have to have to me, you have to have all that. You have to have something that appeals to everybody. And when you do that, it really is. What brings us back to it's magical. Like it's something you can't describe to somebody who's not really a wrestling fan. But to your point, the other day, I went and saw the Ferrari movie with Adam Driver.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there. It's Michael Mann. This movie is well made. The acting is on point. It looks great. It was one of the least entertaining movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I was disinterested the whole time. I'm the only person in the theater. And I'm thinking, man, this sums up wrestling so much when you could do everything right and people be going to get popcorn and a soda.
Okada.
Yeah.
He's an amazing wrestler. I had a pro wrestler say, I don't get it.
Yeah.
When talking about Okada. He's like, in most cases, he's the second best wrestler in his match, much less the best wrestler in the world.
And then there's other people, like when Okada was at his peak, just some of the matches he was having were incredible, but I don't know that I've gone back and rewatched any of those matches. You know, it was good for what it was. Um, but yeah, I think if you're winning an award with 11% of the vote, uh, I mean, I hope they don't tell these wrestlers what percentage they got, because man, that could devastate their egos.
Yeah, that's okay. So the year me, no, I no, I know that didn't happen, but it's, look, nobody's winning at 11. Obviously, you could do the math. Even if there's 7, you got to have more than 11. But my thing is to be even in the 20s,
Right.
like. It's like if you, and look, this was not the category, but I'm just hypothetically saying, if you were like voted wrestler of the year and you found out you won with like 25% or 24% of the vote.
Yeah.
Like, so you were the best wrestler in the state of Georgia, according to a quarter of the, of the state. Like, that's not wrestler there. That goes back why I think 3 is the number. Like, I got to at least know that I got at least 33 or 34% of the, vote counted. So, look, and I get it. Look, it sounds like, we're trying to like, how would you improve the process? Well, there's lots of things they do right. I love that they've added categories over the years. They've included like announcer and commentator as the business grew, and there were commentators added to indie shows. So, look, there's lots of things that are right. Look, I to commend them. I like that there's awards. I actually like that there's trophies. Whether it's a Slammy or not, I mean, literally, that's what somebody said. It's a Slammy award. It's a little Slammy, and that's fine. It's an award of some kind that somebody got anything. So,
right.
And look, we've even upgraded now that there's a gala involved as well, that people can go and get their awards and their trophies. So, look, God bless them.
Yeah, I think another thing that I liked this year in Georgia was that you couldn't just, if you were going to send in nominations, you had to send in a nomination for every category.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that was a good thing. If the awards are going to matter, then there should be a couple. Like when I go to vote in an election, it's not like some nilly-willy thing. I gotta go there, and I got to fill out, and I feel like to me, it means more if I'm getting nominations or if I'm a finalist, to know the steps that people had to take to nominate me. That wasn't just click the button or emailed somebody my name, but they had to know kind of what they were talking about in all these categories. And people could send in, let's say somebody just went to one show, that one promotion all year. I got no problem with them. If those are their favorites and they want to send in a nomination for every category from somebody from the show they go to, that's what they're for. That's what if you're involved in the fans, they're more power to them.
Hey, let's insert there. I want to ask you, because you bring up the fans. This has always been one of the big riffs that, fans don't get to vote in this. It's only people within the industry. And by the way, in years past, that was loosely defined as people involved in the industry. Look, I know at one point Larry kind of put a gatekeeper process on, because look, the year that I was involved, like I sent out the ballots to people, but Larry, I put that pressure on Larry because I'm like, look, it's your awards, not mine. You have to tell me they get one or not.
Right.
So he would say yes in their email, and then I would send it to him, that kind of thing. So, I was real specific in that sense. But the fans not voting, I ran something by you the other day, and because we were kind of bouncing, like, how could you get the fans involved? And one of the things I think we talked about was, look, and I get it, this is not perfect. I'm telling you that. We literally shot this like we were just shooting stuff out. And one of them came up of, why not have like a fan vote, the roster, the talents, people involved in the business, and the committee, and have each vote weighted, and that determined your overall. So the fans were involved, the committee could kind of be involved, and because some people were just like, why not just have a committee of 9, 11 people? You got to have an odd number, and those people elect that, they vote to they are versus, it's, you got to earn your way onto that committee. and then you can become, that it's all done through a committee versus even a vote period.
Yeah. So the way that the Carolinas Awards works is Redbeard puts together a committee of 6. Well, there's 6 spots. So like this year he had all 3 owners of Palmetto Championship Wrestling are on the panel, but that collectively they only got 1 vote. So there's 6 panel votes, and then he uses the Facebook group, which actually got hacked a few years ago for a guy who was trying to win. He hacked the Facebook. It's this. Redbeard works in internet security, so that's probably not the guy whose Facebook group you need to try to hack. So the panel 6 votes, and then he puts out the fans get 1 vote. So in total, there's 7 votes. The fans vote in the Facebook group for the different people. This year, there was actually a tie for Referee of the Year and Wrestler of the Year. So if you originally have 7 votes, maybe 2 got 3 and 1 got 1, or it's possible 2 got 2 and 3 got 1. Which, man, do you want to be Wrestler of the Year if you got 2 votes? Yeah, I like your idea that you weight it. Every vote is worth, certain percentage or something. We shouldn't overcomplicate it. But I do think there's a place for the fans to have a say, in this.
Yeah, like I do understand what some people's reaction to fans are, like as far as them voting. They're gonna vote. It's a fan favorite poll. Well, that's kind of what it's what happens, right? It's right. Wrestling. That's who buys the ticket. So I understand like them having a voice. I'm all for that. So I don't like it not having a voice at all, but I understand saying like they can't be the total vote can't be on fans. I understand that as well. So
right. So somewhere between where we are now and that, there's got to be like a happy medium. But this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. I mean, my brain's like, okay, what's the perfect wrestling awards voting scenario? What would be like? But the fact is, no matter what you do, no matter how you do it, no matter who wins, no matter who loses, somebody's going to complain.
That's where we are in society. That's going to happen.
Right.
So,
that's
yeah.
Right.
So what else you got in there before we dive into actually going through some of the categories? Look, I understand we're being like critical, but it's for the hope of things being better.
Yes.
It's not like, look, I told you I was involved there for a while. Like it's all out of actually like, hey, how could you make it better? Look, if they don't want your help to make it better, that's fine too.
Right.
It's just like, look, it's not like they don't do anything right. They do lots of things right.
Right.
They've run this for years, and look, it's cool. I love the fact that some wrestlers care. I love the fact that some wrestlers don't care. I mean, I think but again, if you had told me January 1st that they matter to you, like here's the punchline: when you win, if they mattered the next year when you didn't win, or vice versa. They don't matter anymore, or they didn't ever matter. I don't ever win. Then you win, and you're like, woo, I won. You shouldn't be excited you won because you didn't care about them last year either.
I would be very heartbroken if these awards went away. I'd be heartbroken. However, here's another point. Award season's about my favorite time of the wrestling year. That November, December, because you start talking about it. What I tried to do is, and it's easier said than done, is why not at the end of January? Because when we go through these, a lot of these finalists are late in the year. So why not through the year, if you're in charge of the awards at the end of January, hey, who we got? Just like college football. College football at the end of week 1. You're speculating, hey, here's who might make the playoff. And then you take that right now, what is the hot button topic for 2 months? You could stretch that through the whole year and you have an ongoing conversation.
What if in January you had a top 3 list?
Yes.
If you did it today, who would be your finalist? And because then as the process went along, you kind of have to knock out somebody to slide somebody in.
Right. This was my argument a couple of years ago when Joe Black won. He didn't even wrestle the first 4 or 5 months of the year. And I just felt like he had a great year when he was coming off injury. He was great. But I will go to my grave saying that was David Ali's year, because from January to December, he would have been in the top 3, top 2 every single month. And that's got to count for something.
Mm-hmm. You weren't the only one, by the way. I caught a lot of grief for saying that. I felt that was David's year as well.
Oh, you did. You did. Listen, you know your podcast is making an impact when other podcasts talk about what you said on your podcast, and promotions change their booking based on something. I mean, I'm not saying that happened or anything.
It happens from time to time. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's right.
Look, we're going to go through these. We are not going to go through them like every single one as detailed as you probably would think, because look, I don't think some of them are that deep. And I don't mean, it just is what it is. The rules were simple. We discussed this ahead of time. We were like, look, we couldn't change any of the finalists. And what I mean by that is like, look, if we looked at a category and we felt like, hey, my pick is not even on here, doesn't matter. We got to roll with the list of the finalists that they put out. Number 2, this is no insult. Look, I tell people all the time, I'm a fan of Pro South. But the last time I checked, Pro South was geographically in the state of Alabama, so I won't give it. And look, and I understand the logic of why they put it in there, and I understand their argument. But this is mine, and this is yours. I'm not doing it, and it's okay. They know that I love Amy and Ace, and I think they have a great role. This goes back to about promotions, the role that they have, knowing what they do, developing talent, and things like that. That's their strength. They put on a show every week. Nobody else does it. So kudos to them, but they're in Alabama. So therefore, It's not a shot at them. It's just saying, but you're in Alabama.
Right.
We don't win, the best podcast done in Canada because we're not in Canada. I mean, that just kind of happens, right? I'm going to let you run the lead here on as far as like which order you want to go through them. And I'll just kind of react as you knock them out.
If I'm being honest, if we can start with the ones I'm going to listen, there's a gazillion wrestling shows in Georgia, a gazillion promotions. It is hard to follow all of it. There's some of these that I'm less familiar with than others. So let's start with the ones that I'm less familiar with. I would say Rookie of the Year. I'm not as familiar with these guys. I will say, and I'm not just parodying Gary Lamb, but Chip Schuyler, to combine it sounds like he's combining Chip Day and John Schuyler. And I don't know that's both those guys are tremendous wrestlers, but who are you thinking in this rookie? And this is a new category, first year.
Yeah.
Like I've heard of Chip Schuyler, Alexander Lev. I've seen more of him or heard more of him than some of these other guys. Well, what about you?
Look, I've seen personally 3 of the 5.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, video of the other 2. I'm not going any particular, down in that rabbit hole. I'm a big fan of Alexander Lev. I just am. Look, he's come a long, long way. And I love a guy who puts the time in the, entrance, into his appearance, his outfit, all the gear, everything. I love the fact, and guess what? He's a player for whatever reason. Somebody tried to give me excuse after excuse. I'm like, doesn't matter. He's been at the big, promotions.
Right.
Somebody, well, it's because he knows, don't care. He's there. Guess what? Last time I checked, that's wrestling.
You got to learn to play the game. There's somebody should write a song about that. That's his name of all these others is the name I've heard the most. I've seen the most. If I had a vote, that's who I would So along those same lines, most improved. And I didn't know if you wanted to read all these names. I don't know how we're kind of calling this in the ring as we're going. But if you're listening to this, you can go to the website and see all the nominees. But most improved: Aaron Dallas, Charlie Anarchy, Cornelius Pepperbottom, Michael Walker, Tyler Stevens, Rico Gonzalez. Again, I'm familiar with a couple of these. I'm just kind of scratching my head about some of this, but
to me, improved. Look, I'm a big fan of Aaron Dallas. I am. I've seen him in small shows, big shows. I've seen him around. I think Charlie Anarchy mostly is an IWE guy, Southern. So I haven't seen a ton. Look, let's just cut through it. So, by the way, Rico Gonzalez, I already thought was really good. So I don't know that the improved thing, like, it's not a shot on him. I already thought he was good. To me, it's a 2-horse race between Tyler Stevens, the Wall. It's not like, here's the thing. I always tell people, I'm not saying things I haven't said to said wrestler in the back.
Mm-hmm.
From where he was a year ago to where he is now is just a massive jump. Guys in Europe right now, and he was wrestling, just locally last year. However, I think Cornelius Pepperbottom, people completely underestimate the time, the effort, and the energy that's gone on to where if you would have said a year ago, and listen, this is not an insult again to Pep. A year ago, some people were just like, oh, he's just that guy that hangs around. He's the exotic youth manager, guy. No, he wrestles now because now they have grown in such a, 3-legged, tripod of a group, in the sense of Zach might be main eventing KLT, Bryce might be main eventing Lariato, but whatever. So now all 3 of those guys are like interchangeable in tag matches. That's how far along Pepperbottom's come.
Yes. I 100% agree with everything you said. The fact that he has gone from just kind of the manager, the sidekick, and I mean no disrespect by that, to you've had Zach be injured a lot of this year, and yet they did not miss a beat, and they're still. I mean, they may not have had as many tag team titles, but they've had one of their best years, and that was with Pep filling in, and that says a lot about him. I guess a question I would say is, what do they mean by? I mean, I think I know what they mean by most improved, and like, okay, so like Charlie Anarchy, did he really improve, or I would say his gimmick improved because he has a gimmick now. He should just kind of be kind of like a tough guy, just like a regular wrestler. Now he's kind of wearing a mask and doing. So I don't know. There's different grades of improvement, but
my answer to this question, because a lot of people have asked me this in the past, I always look at it literally like how much growth in your perception of that person from a year ago to today. It has nothing to do with like necessarily like, oh, he's a better technician in the ring. Okay, that's awesome. What's my overall impression of him as a pro wrestler from where did I see this person a year ago to today? That's just the only way I can answer that. And look, it's a tough one, but I'd probably give it to Pep.
Yeah. If just your first gut reaction is normally the right one, and that's who my gut reaction is. That's not a knock to any of those other guys.
Yeah.
He was part of a main event faction and was able to make a difference for them.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the sheet, and there are a ton of categories. Let's move on to a couple that maybe there's not as much discussion. Announcer of the year, I think you and I both agree on this. Ring announcer of the year, Diana Michelle.
Enough said. I agree, yeah. 110%. Yep.
And then with the commentators, I think you and I both agree, Brandon and Gerard. They've kind of set the standard. And And I think that goes a lot to before. I know that there were promotions streaming or recording their shows prior to Southern Honor coming on the scene. Their presence certainly raised that bar of the presentation and commentary.
Listen, it's, again, not a knock on anybody else on the list. They are a professional team. Period.
Yes. Let's go. Let's go referee of the year. I'm more familiar with some of these guys than other. This seems to be the award that Daryl Hall and David Weekley kind of they just kind of pass back and forth depending on the year. I don't think fans really understand the value of a really great referee.
I'm going to give you this. This is because somebody asked me one year about how would you do this? I said, okay, here's the quick answer. You're starting a promotion. Who's the first referee are you calling to ref your card? There's your referee. I mean, that's it.
Right.
And I will look, my pick's super biased. I tell people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm super biased, he's phenomenal as a referee. But if you ever sit with Grandpa Booker at a show as him as a fan and listen to him point out little things during a show, I'm like, dude gets it. Like, right. He understands, like, little bitty things about, he's like, oh, they probably shouldn't have done this. They should have, done this instead. And what I mean by that, sometimes he's going with a referee. Oh, referee's got to make sure he's looking, like the little things. And I'm like, as much as it, Grandpa Daryl Hall is my favorite referee in Georgia, period.
One thing that I've appreciated about him is, Hall and Weekley, they were trading this award before, like Southern Honor came on the scene, IWE. And who are these newer promotions that have really accelerated? Who are they using? Right. And for me, it's always a coin flip between those two, and it goes back. Who's the first? If you're starting a promotion, who's the first guy you call? And if you're a top promotion and you have a big match, mm-hmm. Who are you putting in there? Or if you're bringing in a big name, who are you putting in there to make sure everything goes well? And so I agree. Yeah, Daryl Hall. I mean, again, I don't know that you could go wrong, but he's a strong vote.
Yeah.
Let's move to promo of the year. I mentioned that. So 2 of these are from November. One's from July, and one is all the way back in January, which is pretty interesting. I remember the year Huckabee and Joe Black won for match of the year for that one that went out in the parking lot, and that was in January. Yeah. But that was, you talked about that match all 12 months of the year. I'm going to be honest. I've heard bits of I heard the hierarchy promo from IWE. I heard some of the one from Southern Honor. But when you're thinking about the promo of the year, what are some of the things you're looking at?
I understand this award. Like, I understand that the want and the need for it. This to me is the biggest one that screams recency, the thing that stands in your mind the most recent. So which stunned me that, look, and I'm surprised as anybody. Later, I'll tell you that the Stucky West one from Classic City in January even made the list. I was kind of like, that kind of surprised me because most people don't go back that far. Here's my thing. That makes me question to, like, how great was this thing that people are still talking about it, and and it's a year later. I just didn't get to. I haven't seen it,
right?
So I got to go out. So that's the thing. By the way, sidebar here. I think promo show, should be done only by committee, and they should all be forced to watch them.
Yes. I think like I'm looking at the website now, all these promos should be linked on here. There should be a link to watch these matches. Or
I think,
this
is Nick
show.
Halen the only one that is? I think on that on the website, I think Nick Halen's from Southern Fried might be the only one.
Yeah, I mean, if you had IWTV, you could watch the others. To me, another thing with the promo is
by the way, which is why they should be voted on by the committee, who should all have IWTV to watch all of said shows / promos.
Right. And if you are selected, like if you vote for the Oscars, they expect you to watch all these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, the ones that are for consideration or whatever. If you agree to be on a wrestling awards committee, you pack a lunch, because you need to be willing to watch a bunch of wrestling and go to a lot of wrestling. But to me, a promo, if it's just in that one show, or does it set up an angle? Does it set up a match? Does it set up something? Here's something that's interesting. None of these promos are a part of any of the feuds of the year. I'm just now seeing that. So you're telling me that maybe the feud of the year, yeah, I mean, you're telling me none of the feuds of the year had a noteworthy promo, and none of the noteworthy promos were part of a feud of the year. Am I incorrect? Am I reading that wrong?
I mean, yeah. I mean, so like, I'm not going to go too long on this argument, but essentially, the promo for Joe Black and the Hierarchy had to be good because it set up a War Games.
Correct.
Right? The Murder One Todd Sexton promo was really good. Here's the thing, though. I thought it was more entertaining than your great wrestling promo. I was in the building when that one happened.
Right.
Crazy part, Nick Halen's promo. I was in the building for that one when that one happened. The Stucky West, obviously I wasn't. So, I saw 2 of the 4. Here's the thing. I'm going to be honest. What I just said about the credentials of somebody, you should have to watch all these 4. I'm not picking one because I don't know, because I didn't see them all.
No, same. I'm right there with you. So congratulations to all the finalists of promo of the year.
Yeah. I could tell you who I would pick, but it's going to be one of the 2 that I saw.
Right. So of the 2 you saw, which one was better?
Look, I really enjoyed the Nick Halen style. He basically sat a chair in the middle of the ring, was ticked off, sat there, stared right into the hard cam, and cut a promo. Like, he got his point across. I'm distant, and so it was and why am I going to vote on it? Because it's a style that I like.
Yeah.
It was an old school wrestling promo. That's why. Murder and Todd were having a little fun with each other, going back and forth, taking comedy shots at each other, which I enjoyed. I laughed, but I prefer the other style. So.
Right. So feud of the year, Owen versus Najicism, Exotic Youth versus Hierarchy, Exotic Youth versus Southern Honor, and Skrilla versus the State. With the Exotic Youth versus Hierarchy, is that part of the Southern Honor angle? Are those feuds kind of intertwined?
Was some of that involved in IWE as well? I mean, is it Sal, the other pieces? Here's the problem. I feel like they're obviously going to split their votes.
Yes.
That's also why, I mean, look, I understand and I can appreciate that, hey, they were so good, 2 things made the thing. I understand that. But it's also going to split their votes. I've seen it happen, so I am aware. I actually witnessed a lot of the Owen versus Naja matches. They were really good matches. Skrilla versus the State's got a case, right? I mean, because that thing's still going.
That's That's my vote is Skrilla versus the Steak because it's taken on a whole nother meaning
Yeah.
in the last week. And and again, I think 2024, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but is 2024 going to be the year Skrilla really gets into that next level?
I hope so. I hope this is the chip. Remember, we talked about sometimes not getting things puts that chip on your shoulder. Look, I've had conversations with Skrilla over the last year.
Yeah.
That chip's already there, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and he just works. And, so I can understand it. And I probably would say, yeah, that's probably my winner. And I probably say yes, that's. Look, but he's also one of the ones that I'm like, man, don't take it. Like, we'll continue this conversation because I know it's going to come up in a later category. So,
yeah. Let's talk best match. Again, one from January, and I heard a lot of buzz about the White Mike versus Coach Mikey match in IWE. The rest of them, November and December. Again, it's that recency bias, I think, that we see. From what I saw, to me, that Lindsey Snow Kelsey Reagan match. Have we ever seen anything like that in Georgia before?
Mm-mm. I don't think so.
All these other matches, great matches.
Can I tell you something, though? I'm going to admit a fault of mine.
Okay.
We're going to go into a therapy session about Nick for a second.
Okay.
I know I'm wrong for what I'm about. I get it. But that violent, typically, of a women's match makes me uncomfortable.
No, me too. Me too.
It's hard for me to vote for it being because it makes me. And look, I'm telling you up front, that's my problem, not theirs.
Right.
So, and that's okay. At least I can say that. There's a lot of people that like, oh no, it wasn't match of the year because blah 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 blah. No, okay, I'm telling you why I can't.
Yeah.
Because it makes me uncomfortable. I know on here other matches. By the way, here's the crazy thing. Another scenario where I'm like, 2 of these matches I saw live and in person.
Right.
I've shared 2 of these 3 on our channel, on our YouTube channel.
Right.
Look, I was not in the of all the ones you would think, the Judias versus Nick Halen at the Thanksgiving show, I was not at that show. It would have been 3, but I didn't get to go to that show.
Yeah.
We still had family here and everything. That match was the 58-minute
right
classic that they had
right.
So I'm torn, look, I'll let you kind of help me here because it's tough between the Bryce Cannon Chip Day match was really, really good, but the Judias Nick Halen and the Owen Nasha both were pretty solid.
Yeah, again, for me, I totally agree with you what you said about women's wrestling. So for me, the reason I would vote for the Lindsey Snow match is because they took this risk they made me uncomfortable, and yet like when I was watching the various clips of it, whatever, I was like, this is making me uncomfortable. I can't turn away from it. It's like all these matches were good, but there's something about what they did that was, to me, again, my personal opinion, something we don't see all the time. We don't see 58-minute matches all the time.
Right.
But they could do that next week if they wanted to. I don't know Lindsey Snow and Kelsey Reagan are going to do that ever again.
Right. No, I agree with you there.
And if you had told me in January, Heath, you're going to be voting on this match for match of the year, I'd be like, no, I'm not. But that's where we are. That's where we are. let's see where. So where did you end up landing?
I would honestly, if you ask me on the spot right now, I would probably argue Judias Nick Halen.
Let me. I don't want to get off on a tangent. One of in our private conversations, you and I, one of our beefs with Georgia wrestling is it's starting to look the same. So you have Judas and Halen for Southern Fried Thanksgiving. Then they come back, same building for Anarchy, doing a ladder match.
Now, in all fairness, that 58-minute match was for the Anarchy title. It was on a Southern Fried show, but they were wrestling. It was title for they were wrestling for that's where Judias won the Anarchy title. And the rematch was at this Anarchy show they just ran in the ladder match.
I don't know if that confuses me less or confuses me more. I knew that. I don't know why because I knew that Anarchy was kind of on hiatus or whatever. Anyway, interesting. That's very interesting. Okay. All right. Well, Heath was wrong about that. All right. Let's go from match of the year to the best live event. I've some of these I've seen clips of. What are your initial thoughts, your initial gut feeling on this?
If you read Gary Lamb's breakdown of this, I would argue he probably nailed it.
Yes.
The Riot on the Row, for as far as by the way, for me personally, live event means also the vibe of the building and a lot of things that are going on in there.
Right.
And I think I was at Hardcore Hell. I was at Still Here 5. Obviously, I was not at the others. But the buzz for Riot on the Row, something the Exotic Youth pulled off. They had some, obviously some help pulling that off, whatever. Like that, to me, the novelty of it and the buzz they had behind it, that's probably your winner. I mean, if I had to guess.
So we said from the beginning, Pro South, we're not including them. I don't know that Southern Honor Still Here 5 was their best show of the year. Like did they have shows that were better? I would knock out Hardcore Hell because to me, Anarchy was such turmoil in are they or aren't they? And we're running here, we're not running here. So that just kind of disqualifies them for me. To me, if the show you have is nominated for show of the year and your champ didn't bother to show up, then you're not, I would say. So by process of elimination and the fact it was a very successful show for a non-wrestling crowd that just seems to have hit so many home runs and really got Exotic Youth probably some more opportunities to run other shows like that. So by process of elimination and being worthy of it, Riot on the Row was what
I was at Hardcore Hill. It's up there. It deserves its place at the table. That's just me personally. I felt like that's why I went with the one I went with. So
yeah, I'm not saying that Hardcore Hell wasn't a good show. I guess I'm just saying, I don't know what I'm saying. Sometimes I don't make any sense, Nick. You'll have to excuse me. Let's go Mentor of the Year. Mentor of the Year. Is this a coin flip for you?
It's actually not.
Okay, I got you. Who you picking?
If it's just me, it's down to two.
Mm-hmm.
It's Rick and Todd. And for I go Rick for some reason this year. Rick gets my vote this year. It's just the gut reaction. You asked me, like, literally that was just me. Like, because here's the thing. People we probably thought a lot of this through ahead of time. We didn't. And just when I looked at the list down in front of me, that's the name that I went Rick.
Do you think and you probably know more about the behind the scenes workings than I do. Do you think that losing uh, the Anarchy building and the things that did happen with Anarchy, that freed Rick up for other things, and really it freed him up to to do some other things in wrestling that maybe he would not have had the opportunity to do otherwise?
Look, maybe. I mean, maybe it motivated.
Mm,
Maybe that's even it. That maybe it was motivation. I don't know, but I know like what I've seen, I'm all for. Like I'm like, dude, wrestling when he's, out there, you'll hear me say this, when he's motivated and he's teaching and he's helping and like, dude, he's like, it just, his name just jumped off the page, and like that's my vote.
yeah,
Not that I
yeah,
vote, but I mean that's my vote.
right. When people are bringing you into their promotion to agent matches, to be a sounding board, and again, Todd's been there, and so yeah, I would have no problem voting Rick for that either. Um, all right, so on the same vein, let's go to the Ted Allen Legends Award. Murder One, Nick Patrick and Simon Sermon.
I mean, it's not like I'm just gonna. It's not that I don't think anybody deserves it. That they all do. The problem is, I think you got to get like 50% of the vote to win.
Mm.
So here's my thing. Throwing my hand up. My other suggestion that I would change. How about the committee just vote somebody to get this award every year?
Right.
Like it's not a voting thing. It's just like you could do some nominees. You get and you come down with the committee gets a finalist list. They narrow it. It's like the Hall of Fame or whatever. Like, hey, here are all the names that came in. We're gonna narrow it down to 5 to 3 to 1, and this person wins. The committee actually votes that every year.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And that may be an award. Maybe you don't have it every year. If they don't, if in baseball, no one gets the required percentage of votes, they don't have a Hall of Fame ceremony that year.
Right. That's what I meant. So like, even like if you take all the nominees, all the names come in, the committee votes. If you have 9, they have to get at least 5, of the votes. They run a vote. Hey, we didn't get 5. We run the vote again. We didn't get 5. We run it again. We didn't get 5. Nobody gets it this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that simple. Anyway.
I think you just fixed that problem. All right, let's move on to manager valet of the year. We've removed Pro South, so Amy Haven, no disrespect. We're not.
I'm a fan. We talk about it. We're fans. It's just it's Alabama. So yeah.
Correct. I think I don't know that Rev Dan. He kind of semi-retired.
He's Southern Honor basically, and he does some other. In Georgia, he's basically Southern Honor. So
I will say, and I said this to you, Xander Seabolt, I think, is the young man that won. The Grapplers won a Tag Team of the Year award on another podcast. He called in with a promo. It was not good. And so that would knock him down for not winning it for me. Tristan Michaels has been around for a long time, kind of. I'm not familiar with. I don't even know if I'm saying this right.
Calafero.
Yeah, I've not seen him live. What are your thoughts on?
I've seen him. I've seen him at Southern States Pro. I've seen him in some West Georgia shows when I've done some of those. It's like a mythical. It's almost a Papa Shango style. I know it's not the same,
Right.
but you get the gist. Because of all the things you discussed, look, I love Seabolt. I think he's young and he's new and he's learning. He's here. Dan's not around enough. Jake's too new. Amy's, Alabama. Talafero. So to me, it's Talafero, Tristan. And I just think Tristan probably is hitting more of the towns as far as going around. And I love the package of JBE, Hunter James, and all of the things he's, done all over the state. So if I had to pick one, I would probably do Tristan this year.
Yeah, that's where my mind was going. And again, this conversation we're having, if you had a panel have this conversation, you can get from 6 to 3 pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to do these in like not order of importance, but you know what I mean. Let's go tag team of the year. Exotic Youth All-Star Special.
You can
Hierarchy.
Stop.
Okay.
It's Exotic Youth. Look at that, and I love. And here's the thing: second name on the list, love the group. Third name on the list, love the group. Down the list, I'm checking boxes, dude. I love every group. But by the way, I don't need. Look, I'm not going to tell you who my 3 are, but I was at 3 like that.
Yeah.
And then it was like, who's my winner? There are reasons why I say Exotic Youth, and it's just sheer coverage and just success across the state. It's their year.
To me, if the hierarchy, it seems like they really didn't. I mean, they've been around forever, but it seems like they really didn't come on until the second half of the year. And if they had like a full 12 months,
like this could be their like this, and like this year running strong, they would have an entire 12 months of as the group, and I think that's it. People don't get as the group,
right? That's why I didn't for Legend. That's why I wouldn't consider Murder One, because he's getting hot again.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm saying that's an award you give him a couple of years down the road. Eventually.
Right. Yeah.
I'm right there with you, man. The fact that Exotic Youth, with Zach Mosley's injury, still was able to do all the things they did, run their own show. I've heard several interviews with them, and they're just on fire right now, and it'll be interesting to see if they can keep it going. Female performer of the year.
Probably the hardest. This is probably one of the hardest ones for me, believe it or not, and I'll tell you why. Because I get to 3, and it's not a popular 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's Crystal, Brooklyn, and Danny. We just sit here and talked about. I love Lindsay Snow.
Yeah,
she was wrestling at Southern Honor. I honestly think she's bigger than Georgia wrestling. That's part of it. But it's also, she only works IWE, and I get it. It's IWE, right? It's one of the big ones, but it's pretty much the only one she works for. And I understand that she had a run of she was champion, okay, you do 6 shows too. That's part of it. But she does wrestle. I'll give her this. She at least wrestles at all the shows, right? So, but if you're asking me the 3 Georgia ones, and look, if you want to give me pushback and say, give me Rolls Gold, Danny missed a lot of the year, I'm not going to sit there and fight with you. I'm not.
Right.
But here's the thing. Brooklyn's all over. She was in a major part of the story in Southern Honor. She captured the inaugural Southern Fried title. She does other promotions down and around the South and the Mid, and you know what I mean? So I'm like, loosely, I'm going to pick her, right? And it's probably not a great popular pick with a lot of people. That's just my pick this year.
So I am going to push back a little bit, and maybe push back even a little on myself on some things I said earlier, because my pick is Lindsay Snow. Again, everything you said, she only worked IWE. They only run 6 times a year. But she was dominant. She was the champion all year. 6 title defenses. Main evented a show.
Mm-hmm.
She, in a season of wrestling where, a few years ago, we were talking about doing away with this category. Mm-hmm. And now I would say one of IWE's, for every bit of criticism I've ever given IWE, they got Lindsay Snow right this year. Whether you like her, don't like her, whether that match made me feel uncomfortable, but that's who I would vote, because Brooklyn may be everywhere, and she is, and I'm certain she's won this award before, deservedly so. But was she the not just the woman, but did she? I mean, if you take Lindsay Snow off IWE, is their year as strong as a promotion?
All right. And look, I hear what you're saying. And by the way, this is one of the few awards where I always tell people, like, if you going with Lindsay, I'm not going to sit there and argue with you.
Right.
Like, there's times where I'll sit there and argue with you about it. It's like, this is not one. If you told me it was between those two and I went one way and you went another, I wouldn't disagree in the least.
I really hope we talked about Danny being injured, and Danny's wrestling Lindsay this Saturday night, and I'll be there to see it, and I'm excited to see that, because I was very excited. The first IWE show I went to, it was Danny Jordan and Savannah Evans, the reigning Georgia Women's Wrestler of the Year and the reigning Carolinas Women's Wrestler of the Year. And to me, that was like, oh man, these are the two measuring sticks in a 3-state area. And I think Saturday night, Danny Jordan, who won at least 3 of these in a row, that this is going to be a measuring stick match. And I can't believe everything I'm saying right now. I'm excited for it.
Let me tell you something about Danny Jordan. This isn't the only look. Her being out is the only reason I'm not immediately putting her, even though, like, oh, hey, she wasn't this. She was. I saw her go toe to toe with Kenzie Paige Henry in a Southern Honor ring. And the second that match was over, the first thought in my head was, why can nobody see that match should have been on television?
Right.
That's my point. So,
again, not to get it, I think I want to see Viral, who created a women's title this year. Dream Girl Ellie was their initial champion. I'm very interested to see how they book a full year of their women's division. Very interesting.
I think most, and I've said this, by the way, to a lot of women's talent, most independent promotions shouldn't even bother with a women's title. I said you should have where you have women on there and that, they're fighting their way up or whatever. And then when you're ready to treat your crowd, like, hey, this is our top female talent. You want to put your money where your mouth is? Go pay and bring in Kenzie Paige Henry, or bring in, Camille, or you bring in a name that's out there. And I know that's about to be over, by the way, on the indie scene, but you know what I'm saying? Go bring in somebody who's like, nah, now we're going to show you this is a women, because we're going to put our money where. Stop bringing in the same 5 or 6 women and rotating them in. Bring in, have a women's division, and reward them with an MWA world championship match. Look, you get it. Most of the time, they're not going to win, and that's fine. But that match, she didn't beat her for the NWA women's title, but the match she had with Danny Jordan had with Kenzie Paige proved to me enough that, like, hey, that's a women's wrestling match. And it stood out that much. It meant more than anybody having a women's championship in their promotion.
Right. And isn't it weird that, like, Southern Fried, it's like now we went from no one having a women's championship. Now everybody's got them. Let's talk technical wrestler of the year. All these very good, fine technical wrestlers. What are your thoughts on this?
Might surprise you with my answer.
Okay.
He loves it when I say this. He chuckles when I say this. When motivated and focused, nobody, and I mean nobody, can knock. This is Chip Day's award. When he is motivated, I tell everybody all the time, he is one of the absolute best. And that's who I would go with.
I think we saw, I think about Nick Halen in this award. you think, I mean, Adam Priest is a tremendous wrestler, but he's mainly in action. But Nick Halen and Adam Priest are both in that consistently in that main event spot, wrestling other really good talents. But what I've seen from Chip Day this year, he's wrestled all different sorts and has had that ability to bring out something in them. And
It's
you're right. He's had a tremendous year.
he's become the measuring stick Chip Day.
Right.
He's the X-Pac. You know, they used to make a comment of like, hey, somebody went to the WWF, they put him out there with X-Pac, and you get the nod whether he can go or not. Chip Day. Look, by the way, if you told me you were going to give this award to Nick Halen, I'm not going to sit there and argue with you. But I think my brain, technician means something else, and that's why I always lean in somebody like Chip Day.
Right. I think when you're talking about wrestler of the year, technical wrestler of the year, performer of the year, those are three very distinct things. I think any of the 6 finalists could win this award, and it wouldn't be wrong because they're all really good. All right, we're getting toward let's go Booker of the Year. What are your thoughts? We have to take out Ace Haven because he's in Alabama.
Yep. To me, here's the thing. I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I know a lot of people like to argue that shouldn't booker, promoter, and promotion be essentially one? And I said no. And they said, why? I said, because I think there's 2 different things. And we're going to go through each one of these, what my disclaimers are. For booker, to me, it's the storytelling.
Yeah.
Storytelling means not only having the story written out, but executing it along the way. And look, things happen in wrestling, and being able to adjust on the fly. I love everybody on this list is really good at their job. They are. Look, by the way, just because we had to take Ace off of the list because of our rule, book 52 weeks, every weekly. Dude, look, I'm giving props. This is trust me, this is not one that I was like, oh yeah, we'll just take him. No. Okay, tip your cap to Ace Haven. We'll start there. Dylan and Todd, to me, especially, Todd. This is one that I always tell people, to win this award, you have to knock Todd off. Because Todd is really, really good about not just like writing the story out, planting the seeds along the way. Eric Bischoff talks about storytelling. And he's like, angles aren't storytelling. Like, you can get 2 guys in a ring by doing a wrestling angle and saying, hey, they're going to wrestle. That's not storytelling. Laying groundwork and like little bitty details along the way that once you get to the end that you're like, oh, you have the payoff. That's storytelling.
Yeah.
And the 2 best in the state, in my opinion, are Dylan and Todd. So on a regular basis, it's like, can Dylan knock off Todd for this award? This is the year it's pretty close. Dylan will probably but it's hard for me. I always fall Todd. There's little bitty things that I see at a show and that I'll go, 2 shows ago, there was a piece of here that didn't make any sense at the time, and now we just made sense of it. Like, it was laying the groundwork for something that happened. That's one of Todd's strengths.
One thing the last 18 months since they did the whole kind of retirement angle with Todd at Southern Fried, he's been able to prove that he can book tremendously without him being in the thick of it.
Right.
I think a lot of times a booker you believe in yourself, so of course you're going to put yourself, you want the last shot. Again, yeah, those to me are the top 2. Brian Blaze at PCW. PCW is a promotion where guys really get seasoned, they get opportunities. But I just don't hear about it as much as I used to.
Now, if you were talking about most creative, that might be one that you could argue for PCW, because they do some of the most creative stuff, and but that's, to me, is a different thing. So we're literally like it's a lot of it. I think comes down to what you believe the award means, and there's no clear definitions on a lot of them. It's just kind of like boom, they say the name, and that's everybody's supposed to know what it means, and that's kind of why I went that route of saying what I said. By the way, I think knowing some things that I know, 2024 could be that year that's a different answer at the end of the year. So, I'll still go Todd, just because I want to chip away at Dylan, put that chip on his shoulder somewhere.
I will rubber stamp that with you as well. All right, male performer of the year.
This needs to be changed. I don't understand what the difference is if there's no women in overall wrestler of the year. Can there be? Because if the answer is there could be, okay, well then why do we not ever see them? But if so, then why do we even have a male if it's just wrestler of the year? So that I don't. Now, if you were like I would, because at one point I said, hey, why isn't this award called like entertainer of the year or something? So then it's like a gimmick. It's a gimmicky type award.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I mean, because I'm not going to get into why some of these people shouldn't be on. Like, to me, the list is almost, look at it. It's damn near the same list.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just my take. I'm not even going to pick one, honestly, because I think they bleed together so much. Like I got it when it was like, it was Hanson and it was Matt Sells. It's like that's what that award meant to me.
Right.
And this, I'm like, the closest character, the closest gimmick on here, like as far as the character work is the Cruel character. Like he's the only one, by definition of the award that I think it is, that he's the only one that falls under. So I don't know. I can't answer this one because I don't even know what it means.
Yeah. No, I'm there. I do not disagree with you in the least. All right. So we got wrestler of the year, promoter, and promotion. Let's go promoter. Let's do promoter, then promotion, and then end with wrestler of the year. For you, who's your promoter of the year?
Gary Lamb.
Yeah.
Because of what I think of the definition of a promoter is.
Yeah.
Who's the best owner of a promotion? All right. Well, now I might have a different answer. But the best promoter is Gary Lamb. Look, now I'm not knocking the team at Classic City. They done some heck of a stuff, this year. So
right.
I'm not saying they're not like close, but that's my take. And who's creating the buzz for his promotion? I mean, that's it.
And also, one thing I like about Gary, whether you like him or you don't like him, it's not generic. It's not the what am I trying to say? He's not just sharing a flyer. He's not just sharing, now here's a match. He's
engaging.
That's right.
He's engaging his audience.
And he's telling you, okay, these two guys are wrestling. This is why you need to come see it. And it's also, if you go through Gary's timeline, and I follow most of these guys on Facebook. If you go through his timeline, not a lot of duplicate posts. Again, there's a creativity to it. So we're agreeing. So that's probably all we need to say.
I mean,
so then what's the promotion of the year?
Okay. So now that we're kind of at the third piece of it.
Yeah.
I talked about the three things mean different things. We talked about like Booker's the guy who's telling the best stories. That's what I think it means. If I'm wrong, okay, I'm wrong. So that's just what I think it means. Promoter's the guy actually promoting, not owning the business. Like, I don't think you're a promoter of a promotion just because you own it.
That's right.
So promote, actual promote. Sharing the like you said, sharing a flyer is not promoting. That's it. It's not. Let me back it. That's all to promoting. That's not the only thing.
Right.
Is what we're saying. when it comes to promotion of the year, here's the thing. A lot of people want to argue, hey, it's all based. Look, and even when Southern Honor was drawing the biggest crowds, I pushed back and told them that's not what makes them the best promotion at the time.
Right.
And the people would put, we go back and forth. Because look, if it was all based on the largest, by the way, we'll go back to promoter. Ricardo. Where's Ricardo from Mucha Lucha? Okay, Mucha Lucha, if it's all based on crowd sizes, nobody draws what Ricardo draws at Mucha Lucha. He's promotion of the year. He's promoter of the year. End of discussion. Shut the doors. The party's over.
Hey, let me ask you this. So while we're on that, I was just thinking about this. So Ricardo runs 4 shows a year. What's he average? 4,000? I mean, what's he average? 1,000 a show? 1,500?
Yeah.
So say it's 1,000 shows. So they've got 4,000. IWE, let's say they drew 500 a show. Well, they only run 6 shows, so they're at 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Southern Honor, 12 shows. What are they? 350 to 400.
They broke 400 last show, so you're somewhere.
So they're 3,600. We're not including them because they're in Alabama. Pro South, 52 shows. What if they drew 100 people at every show? They're outdrawing everybody.
Right.
So to me, if we're looking at numbers, I don't know that that's an argument people really want to have if you want to talk about total draw.
Mm-hmm.
I think Classic City, this could be a year where they really they've got an opportunity. I think to knock on the door and be there.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could. I just think I think Action is just so consistent. They're so consistent in the type of wrestling, the quality of the wrestling. But and again, I would just say this is a gut feeling. Action has lost some momentum. It feels like. But to me, man, Southern Honor is just the big dog right now.
The problem that I have answering these questions, and this is like, ask the wrestlers where they not where they're going to not. Had to catch something I was going to say there. Ask the wrestlers who's the promotion to work for. Look, because it's generally not, because I know there was the whole pay thing. Don't care. Kudos, boys get paid. I've always argued thumbs up. I don't care. It's where do guys want to work and the why. There's things that I know that I've been told that happen behind the scenes that make this hard to answer without saying things that like there are things that I know that are going to happen. And I'm like, okay, if this person is endorsing this person for whatever reason, and I have a personal relationship with the guy that I'm like, he would know. That's the promotion. Like, that's the one. Right. And it doesn't, by the way, it's who's your favorite promotion versus who's the promotion you want to work for, I guess might be 2 different answers.
Not which promotion pays the most. Which promotion would you work for free? Not because they can't pay you, because the value to you as a performer is bigger than dollars and cents. And by you being on this card.
Here's the answer. Tell a wrestler you can only work at one promotion in the entire state. Who's it going to be?
If you told me, Heath, and again, they've got a great commentary team. Heath, there's one show you could go do commentary for in Georgia. Sign me up. I'm going to Canton. So anyway, well, that wasn't much of an argument. Great minds think alike, I guess. Yeah. All right. Finally, and as they say in the business, we've gone over our time, but that's okay. They'll cut some time off the main event. Wrestler of the year. Who you got?
So we're going to do a couple things. I'm going to make the argument that I made at the beginning. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to argue it, and then I'm going to argue against it in the same breath.
Yeah.
I argued Cruel's bigger than Georgia. He wrestles all over the country now, blah, blah, blah. Somebody pushed back on me yesterday, and here's the argument. Yeah, but he wrestles, more than some people that were kind of mentioned. They're not on the list, but they were mentioned on the list at one point. Like, hey, what about this guy? What about this guy? Look, he wrestled. Look, your argument for female wrestler of the year, Lindsay Snow. Cruel wrestled more in Georgia than she did.
No, that's right.
So how could you argue one versus the other? I'm taking him out just because I think he's bigger than Georgia. So yes. I'm going to end it there. So that's just my take. I'm partial to Nick Halen, and everybody knows that. And so it's really hard for me not to. Look, I know what was said, and I understand this. But look, my take simply. This isn't Skrilla's year, but I think this is that stepping stone as far as like could be that chip that we talked about that puts him in that next level. I made a case a couple weeks ago. I mean, well, probably about a couple months ago. You would be hard pressed to argue against Judias when he was standing there as the Southern Honor, the Southern Fried, and the Anarchy champion. He's not now, I get it. Right. But there for the window, he held 3 of the biggest titles, in the state. Some people argue against Judias. Hey, he's an NWA guy. He wrestles a lot in Georgia, dude. He's here. He's on a regular, so he's a Georgia guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's who my vote's for. I would say this to Skrilla. This is one of those times to where it was beneficial, I think, that they had more than 3.
Yes.
But to know that this is how well you were thought of. You are in the conversation. And now the opportunity is now the opportunity is your foot's in that door and to take it. And what can he do in 2024?
If by the way, here's the if part, because there are 6. I'm down to 5 immediately because I pulled Cruel.
Right.
There aren't many times I agree in the sense of, yes, having this many was a huge plus. Just from the sake of 2, by the way, Hunter James is not a rookie, but he's not far from. He's closer to being a rookie than he was from being,
right.
The guy, and dude literally was main eventing and winning, championships and promotions. And I'm talking like Southern Fried, Anarchy, like he was winning titles. And now is entering into a feud with Chip Day at Southern Honor for the Jake the Snake Legacy title.
Right.
To be as young as he is, by the way, this is one of those scenarios with Hunter James where I'm like, he needs to be like mentioned now. I think, look, everybody knows what I think about him, like as far as the character and what I say about him on our show on a weekly basis. I call him a little prick. He's a little cocky, arrogant. He is. But I'm also the first one to sit there and go, I see a lot of Austin Theory in Hunter James in the sense of like, if led correctly, he could be one of those guys that's gone like super quick.
Right.
So enjoy the ride while he's here, because I do think that. Bryce Cannon's another one that I have said, I think just watching this year, the transformation, the look, and what he's done. He's gone on to become, he's the Lariato champion, being that, with the exotic youth. I just think this is right. Like all of these guys they could all plead their case. I just think this year was Judias' year as far as being from the 12-month run, holding all of the major championships, and being the big that's just me. And everybody knows, like, look, as much as I love every person involved in this. This is literally one. I can say this. I honestly can. I'm personally invested in every single person on this list.
Yeah.
So it'd be hard. It's hard for me to like say one. For me to make that pick, it's my true gut reaction pick.
To me, this award is who is the guy that he's just main event. Like, you wouldn't even think about putting Judas on the first match. He is a company carrying wrestler at this point.
Yeah.
And he just had a phenomenal.
I agree.
Phenomenal year. Here's the thing. Dude turns 50 this year. I mean, I don't know if I'm breaking kayfabe or whatever. You can Google it. Dude turns 50 this year. Who's going to take that from him?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If I'm a young guy, Judas, Cruel, Nick Halen, they're all kind of getting up there. Those other guys are young. There's opportunities in the next couple of years as some guys step away, retire, whatever. There's going to be an opportunity for some of these young guys to step up. And can they make themselves unique and invaluable and really, continue carrying the torch of Georgia wrestling? It remains to be seen.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
Well, there you go. All 59 awards. Dude, I'm thinking about going to the gala, and dude, this is going to be longer than the Oscars. But hey, I get some wild. If they have a wing buffet, we'll see. I'll give you my full report. Oh, I know. I mean, I'll pay, but I want a wing buffet. $20.
I don't think it's a wing buffet. Reach out for details.
Well, I'll take whatever I can get at this point. But I do have the night free, and plans are being made just to see what all the fuss is.
Yeah, man. Look, I hope it's a success. Like we look, before we get out here, we want to make sure we're clear. Like, look, we love it. It creates it in conversation. Yes. It generates conversation. Hey, Nick, you don't talk about it a ton on your podcast. We're more of a national podcast. We just happen to throw something, references do slip out, when we, hey, it's guys up for wrestler of the year. This guy was a wrestler of the year, that kind of thing. But look, everybody knows we cover Georgia wrestling, when we're there every weekend. We try to be, I know you're going to hit IWE. I can't wait to hear about that one, lots of stuff. But look, anything else you want to say about the awards or anything like that before I plug all of our usual stuff?
No, I would just say, your podcast is more of a national podcast. The Double Dropkick Show I do with Mark Whitman, we talk about the wrestling you grew up with, the wrestling you should watch now and stuff. He has no interest in talking about or watching independent wrestling. We watch old school stuff. And so this was a good avenue for you and I to cover topics we normally don't cover on our regular scheduled programming.
Yeah. Listen, I wanted to share this like before we went off. If anybody has sat through an hour and 48 minutes of us talking about Georgia Wrestling History Awards, you're probably interested in to know this is something I really would like to do, maybe even if it's just once a month, me and you get together, talk about Georgia wrestling, kind of go into detail, a little bit behind the scenes stuff or whatever, kind of like what you do, but more of a deep dive into it. And maybe share a few things. And if I do that, by the way, I will share it on our YouTube channel, on our Patreon, patreon.com/tappedoutpod, the YouTube channel or whatever. Look, this is not probably, I'm not going to release this on our on our podcast, the actual audio podcast. Maybe I should, but I may not. What do you think? Should I release it onto the podcast feed, or I just don't know anybody's going to sit an hour and 20 minutes or hour and 50 minutes of.
I don't know, man. People listen to. It's amazing how long podcasts are these days. Obviously,
listen, I listen to 3-hour Bischoff podcasts, so I guess it's all possible. Look, I will share in the show notes. I will have, because do you still have your Patreon going? Do you want to plug that or anything? Or
no, we're just doubledropkick.com is where we're on all the Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We don't have our Patreon going. If you really want into our private Facebook group, if you send me a message on Facebook, I'll think about it. It's not a very big group, but we have some good conversation in there, and frankly, we could talk about stuff in there that we don't talk about publicly. So
yeah, I do like that. That is one of the cool things about it. But like, look, maybe this is something we can do on a more regular basis. We'll put it out here, put it behind the paywall for a little while, and then release it out to the masses, that type of thing on our YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. But man, I had a blast doing it. I hope people enjoyed it, and I hope you did as well.
And I hope people, like you said, man, you and I did not plan to go this long, and I appreciate your time because that's our most valuable resource. But I hope no one listens to this and comes away thinking, well, those guys really hate the awards. We just talked about it for 2 hours. We love them. We love it. So please don't stop doing awards so we can have something to talk about.
I agree, man. Well, look, that's everything I got. Hey, you haven't done this one in a while. It's been almost a year since you got to do this. What's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.